Hi there guys, my name is Tim. Welcome to the channel. This is Books on Mind, Body and Soul, and today we are going to be talking about depression and diagnosis of depression. So for those of you who are unaware, this channel is to try and tackle mental health and physical well-being as well as mental well-being, but majority of it is sort of going into deep dives into depression and anxiety, because these are things that are close to my heart. I had a diagnosis of depression when I was 18 years old. I'm now 34, so almost half of my life has been living since this diagnosis of depression. And then since then I've had sort of multiple re-diagnoses. It's gone away for a while and then it's kind of come back, and I've had to go through the similar processes again. Each time that I go through these things, it's a scary prospect. Even though I know what is going to be coming, it's a scary prospect to have to go through it. And I wanted to try and create videos which make that diagnosis process a little bit easier for people who are perhaps going through it the first time and wanting to know what will happen when you go to your GP. What will happen when you go to your first counselling appointments and things like that? Because honestly, it's nerve-wracking. It's incredibly nerve-wracking, and I completely understand why so many people don't want to go forth to their GP. They don't want to go to their GP. They don't want to go to a counselling appointment or a CBT appointment or something like that, because it's terrifying and they don't know what to expect. And when you've got depression and anxiety, not knowing what to expect and having to go into something blind is a difficult thing to do. It's one of the harder things to do with depression, and a lot of people, particularly with anxiety, sort of struggle with that aspect of things. So I wanted to do videos which kind of help the diagnosis process out a little bit. And one thing that I wanted to cover was this little sheet of paper here. So this is called the PHQ-9, or the Patient Health Questionnaire. So essentially what this is a diagnostic tool. This is what GPs use to see the level of severity of your depression in this case. And there's 3 different forms that GPs or hospital staff will use when they're doing diagnosis for the main part. I'm in the UK, this is based in the UK, but these forms are universal. So the website that I got these off was an American form, so it's something that will transfer across the world. It is a universal thing that was created by the World Health Organization in order to try and diagnose severity of depression. Now, the Patient Health Questionnaire 9 is 9 questions, which is where the 9 comes from, that is you are to answer quickly and honestly in order to get a level of what the severity of depression is. So I'm going to go through each of the questions and explain to you exactly what it means, and it is fairly self-explanatory, but this is one of the forms that you will get alongside the GAD-7, which will diagnose your level of depression. So it's part of that process. Now, I've filled out a number of these forms over the years. So anytime that I went to the GP in order to get a diagnosis, or when I felt like my mood was sort of dipping and I wanted a little bit of additional support, anytime that I went to the GP with this, they would have me fill in this PHQ-9, because it is the easiest sort of diagnostic tool to give. I also had to fill this out every single CBT appointment that I had, and every counselling appointment that I had, because I've been through 2 bouts of CBT and I've been through counselling. They are different, and that's something that I will go into at a later time. So every single session, before they told me to fill it in sort of within the hour before, or on the day of the appointment that I was due to take, whether the appointment was first thing in the morning, last thing at night, I had to do it on that day. And you have to, in order, this allows them to track where you are on the scale, and whether you are showing improvements or showing signs of getting worse. and it just allows them to keep a record of it. Now, the majority of this now is done online. Certainly my last bout of CBT, it was all done online, and I could do it all on my phone, and it was just yes, or well, not yes, no, but you'll see in a second the choices that you're going to have, but like 0, 1, 2 and 3 for multiple of questions, and those are the scores, and it'll total up the scores and it'll send it straight through to your therapist. And you do that on the day of the appointment. If you forgot it, it doesn't really matter. They're not too bothered. If you continually forget it, then they will push for you to do it, because they want you to have that. They want to have that sort of record as to where you're progressing. So yeah, try to remember to do it when you are going through counselling. But it's fairly straightforward, and it doesn't take too long to do, particularly when you're used to the questions and you know what to. Before you even start the questionnaire, you'll be like, okay, well, I know that this is going to come up. How have I been like? So let's go through the questions. Let's talk through exactly what it is that they're wanting from you, and sort of give an indication as to what all of this stuff means. So as I say, there's 9 questions, and they all have the overall start of the question is exactly the same. So I'll read verbatim from the sheet. So over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by any of the following problems? So that is the overarching question that we're asking. Over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? So we're looking at it in the course of the last 2 weeks. We're not looking at it as 6 months ago, this is what I felt like. 6 months ago, I was feeling suicidal. 6 months ago, I was feeling like I couldn't move out of my bed. Last 2 weeks. This is what we've got to stick to, is the last 2 weeks. And because this is, honestly, these forms, they're incredibly easy to lie on. They're very easy to lie on. Or they're very easy to present misinformation that is not 100% accurate. And you can do that by accident as well. It's very easy to do it by accident, because when we're stuck in these periods of low mood, everything kind of jumbles into one. When was the last 2 weeks? When was the last time that I was feeling suicidal? Was that 11 days ago or 20 days ago? I don't know. I have no idea when that was. So you just kind of have to think about it in terms of, I don't know, like, you've got to try and be as honest as you possibly can, and really think about the last 2 weeks, specifically the last 2 weeks. But then the questions that they're going to be asking you, what it advises, or what they advise you to do, is answer them with your first response. Don't overthink that specific question. Your first response, your gut response, should be the one that you're going with. And it also kind of says, you know, just do it fairly quickly, but, you know, be honest. It's very important to be honest with it. It really is, because you could be diagnosed and put on some incredibly strong medication when your depression actually doesn't warrant it, and we don't want that. We want to be on the correct dosage of medication, because the ideal world that we live in is that we come off medication. We go onto it, it helps us out for a while, we come off it slowly. That's the ideal. For a lot of people that doesn't happen, but that's what we want, is we want these scores to start coming down, that then they can go, actually now we can reduce your medication, we can reduce the amount of sessions that you're going to have. Maybe you only need to have a session once every 2 weeks, because your scores have been reflecting that it's coming down over the 2 weeks. You don't need to see your counsellor every week. So, over the last 2 weeks, question 1, over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? And the first question is, little interest or pleasure in doing things. These are the days where you sit on your sofa, or you sit on your chair, or you lie in bed, and you do not want to do anything at all. And that's your hobbies, that is your, I mean, hobbies is the main one, because they're the ones that you're getting interest and pleasure out of, otherwise it wouldn't be your hobby. A lot of people get interest and pleasure from their work as well, but your hobbies, Going out and doing things, going out and socializing, things like that. These are all things which get affected by depression in a major way. And this for me is often the score that I'm putting quite a high score. So each of these questions, you are putting 0, 1, 2, or 3. And that is, 0 is not at all, 1 is several days, 2 is more than half the days, 3 is nearly every day. So how often, how many days in those 2 weeks you have little interest and pleasure in doing things? And for this one, I was pretty much always starting the questionnaire with a 2 or a 3, because the majority of the time when I was feeling my periods of low mood, I do end up sitting on the sofa, not doing a whole lot, and just kind of vegetating to YouTube. But I'm not really watching the YouTube. I'm not enjoying the YouTube. I'm just staring at it. And you can't find all of these hobbies that I enjoy, my trading cards, reading, playing video games. I just don't want to do them. So yeah, little interest and pleasure in doing things. You've got to look at your hobbies and look at the things that you've been doing. You know, if you did go out, if you managed to go out with your friends, did you enjoy yourself whilst you were out there? Or did you spend the entire time just, you know, with a drink in your hand, not really paying attention to the conversation around you, not watching the band in front of you or whatever it was that you were doing? Are you truly enjoying that thing that you were doing? So that's question 1. Question 2, feeling down, depressed, or hopeless. Now, I covered this in a previous video. There's a difference between feeling sad and feeling down, depressed, and hopeless. So down, depressed, and hopeless is ongoing. It is an empty feeling in your chest. I described it last time as a hole in your chest, which doesn't get filled by anything. And when you're feeling that way, you can feel sad. You're allowed to feel sad. Humans feel sad. It is a human emotion that we're allowed to feel. And you shouldn't feel bad about feeling sad. But feeling down, depressed, or hopeless, you are continually for a prolonged period feeling this way, and this might last for several hours of the day, and then it comes back the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. So you quite often find that this will kind of build in chunks. You might find that you've got a period where for several days in a row you are feeling down, depressed, and hopeless, and then you get a couple of days of reprieve from it. You might find that this is just an ongoing thing. You might find that you get a day here and there, in which case you can perhaps, you know, have things happened in order to make you feel that way. If they haven't, then yes, maybe that counts. But if nothing has happened, if there's something has happened that makes you feel sad, that's fine. You're allowed to feel sad from that. So yeah, feeling down, depressed, or hopeless, and again, 0 to 3 of how many days that you have had that happening to you. Question number 3, trouble falling or staying asleep, or sleeping too much. So is your depression affecting your sleep? Quite often, you do see the two different options here. So obviously, trouble falling or staying asleep. If you're ruminating on something, which is something that we do a lot when we've got depression, we'll ruminate on these problems that we've got. You might find that it's difficult for you to fall asleep. But also sleeping too much. If you find that you are just sitting on the sofa staring at a screen and you're not doing anything, a lot of the times doing that, you'll drop off and you're sleeping too much. You're having naps throughout the day because everything's getting too much for you. And that happens, and that is just a part of depression, is sleeping too much or not being able to sleep enough. Difficult to differentiate sometimes as to whether it is depression or, you know, you got a good night's sleep. But generally with depression, you don't feel rested after you've had a long night's sleep. You feel like you still need to sleep some more. Medication can affect this. I was put on sertraline for a while until I decided that it wasn't working for me. I think I was put on it for about 3 months. And during that time, there was days where I slept for 17, 18 hours a day. I got up, I went to work, I had quite a short shift at the time. I'd go to work, I'd get home and I'd sleep. And the medication would absolutely screwed up my sleep. As soon as I came off the sertraline, I went back to my usual sleeping pattern. And my usual sleeping pattern is around about 6 or 7 hours, regardless of whether I'm on a high period or a low period of my mood. So if I'm getting around about that, I would say that that's average for me. That's absolutely fine. It's not what humans are advised to get. We're advised to get 8, but yeah, if I get six hours, I'd put that in the range of, no, my sleep has been fine. My sleep has been normal for me. If I have trouble getting to sleep though, and it ends up being sort of 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm still tossing and turning and struggling, then, you know, I'd look into it then. Okay, feeling tired or having little energy. That's the next one. That is, again, links into the next one, but feeling tiredness and fatigue within depression is a difficult one to kind of go through, because again, we can all feel tired. If we've gone and done something for the day and we get home after a hard day of work and we sit on the sofa and we're like, oh, I'm tired. Yeah, that's a normal thing, absolutely normal thing. Tiredness in depression often feels like it's bone tired. Your bones are tired and aching, and it really, you struggle to be able to get going, to move anywhere, to stand up off the sofa. And again, you want to sleep all of the time. You are drifting off to sleep constantly. So yeah, feeling tired or having little energy kind of goes along with the trouble falling asleep, asleep or sleeping too much. You will feel tired if you've struggled to sleep the night before as well. So take that into account. But yeah, if a gut reaction is, I'm always tired, then that's a 2 or a 3 easily when you're answering that one. Poor appetite or overeating. So again, all of these things cover both sides of the spectrum, because both sides of the spectrum are a reality with depression. So depression causes me to not want to cook, and my diet when I'm in low moods is, what can I shove in an oven, or what can I order from a takeaway? And then the overeating aspect is, I will snack. So the poor eating aspect of things, or sort of poor appetite, is those things that I'm just shoving in an oven or whatever. I know that I need to eat, so I force myself to eat. I don't necessarily want to eat all the time. I generally struggle more with the overeating though, which is a snack when I'm feeling low. I will get Domino's pizza, and I just get a large. I live across the road from a Domino's pizza, and it's so easy for me to order it on the app, go over there, I can be back in my house 90 seconds later with a pizza in front of me that is 3,000 calories, and I'll eat the whole lot, plus I'll have breakfast and I'll have dinner. And it ends up like overeating. I have 4,000, 4,500 calorie day on those sorts of days. And because of the depression, I've not worked any of that off. I've not lost any of those calories. I've not burnt any of those calories. So yeah, I tend to struggle with the overeating part, but the poor appetite is certainly a thing where, you know, if you're feeling depressed, feeling anxious, you don't want to cook, you can easily convince yourself to just not bother eating, because it's too much effort to go and make yourself some food. It's very easy to do that. So yeah, again, what days have you struggled with those sorts of things? Number 6, feeling bad about yourself, that you are a failure or have let yourself or your family down. And I think also, I mean, it doesn't include family on there. You could probably include friends as well. It doesn't include friends. You could probably include friends in there as well, because certain social aspects that you do, you end up not going to because of the depression, and you feel like you've let your friends down, you've not wanted to see them or anything like that. That's a regular one for me. I do become a little bit of a recluse when I'm not feeling great. So yeah, feeling that you've let friends down kind of comes under that as well. But family, that kind of goes with a lot of things. There's a thought process that goes through your mind with depression sometimes of, this is not normal, I am not normal, and not being normal, I should be normal. I should be a normal human being. I shouldn't feel this way. And that is where the letdown part comes from, because it's like, where did I get all of this? I should be normal. What will my family think? What will my friends think? And those thoughts go through your head quite regularly. And you quite often kind of feel like you're a failure for not being able to live a normal life, or your thought process as to what a normal life is. The fact is that you're not alone. You're not the only person who goes through this. I think it's 1 in 3 people have got depression, which is a crazy statistic. 1 in 3 people have got depression in this country. I think that's right. I might be wrong with that, but yeah, it's a case of, you will have those thought processes. You will think that you are a failure despite the fact that you are not, and something that crops up a lot, and it can crop up multiple times. And when you're having those days of feeling down, depressed and hopeless, you spiral into these thought processes. When you get that hopeless feeling, you'll be like, well, this is never going to end. I'm a failure because I can't control my own emotions. I can't control my own depression. I'm a failure because I've not been able to go to work today. I'm a failure because I've told my friends that I couldn't go out. And these are things that you need to be honest with. If you're having those thoughts, you've got to be honest with yourself. Put them down on the paper. Number 7, trouble concentrating on things such as reading the newspaper or watching television. So I mentioned earlier about sitting and putting YouTube on. YouTube is something that I genuinely watch a lot of. So this is why I use YouTube as my channel to talk. So I watch a lot of YouTube, and I know that it has helped me a lot. When I find that I'm struggling with my depression, I will put videos on which I have watched multiple times, and I will just put them on, and I will sit and I will stare at the screen, or I will be watching and then I'll go on my phone for a little while, or I'll grab something, I'll start doing something else, and I'm very fidgety, I can't concentrate on that. If I put a film on, I really struggle. And I know that I really struggle. I don't watch many films anymore. I used to watch a lot of films, used to love watching films, but I don't watch many films anymore because I struggle to sit through a 2-hour thing without going on my phone and then I miss something that's on the screen. If I do watch something, it tends to be something that I've watched before, which is a comfort thing. I know the ending of it. I know that I can drift away and go onto something and then come back to it. I'm absolutely fine with that. But yeah, I don't watch sort of films or anything like that. I don't read the newspaper anyway, but reading in general, struggle to concentrate on reading. Sometimes I'll find myself reading the same page a couple of times and I'm like, what am I doing? Come on, sort myself out. But yeah, struggle of concentrating is definitely a thing that I found very early on in my depression, that concentration and memory were 2 things that really got affected by my depression. So concentrating on one thing for a long period of time can be difficult unless you find something which you absorb yourself into for that time. So that's definitely something to watch out for. Number 8. So this one's an odd one, but you do find that you're doing it. You do find that you do it. So moving or speaking so slowly that other people could have noticed, or the opposite, being so fidgety or restless that you have been moving around a lot more than normal. So I mentioned fidgetiness before. So I will sort of fidget, go on my phone, pick my phone up, do something, and I do this at work as well, and I'm really bad for it, where I'm trying to concentrate on doing some of my work, and then I'll pick my phone up for a little bit. I'm not really doing anything on my phone, I just have a look at it, and then I go, and then I get up and go walk around or whatever. And yeah, I can be quite fidgety at work when I know that I need to concentrate on one thing. I can be quite fidgety and not do that. Moving or speaking so slowly that other people could have noticed. Now, I think that I do this one. I used to think that when I was feeling really low, and particularly when I'm feeling anxious, this gets me, I will slur my words a little bit more. And it's one of those where I can feel myself slurring my words. And it's not like alcohol related or anything like that, but it does kind of feel like when you can't quite get your words out when you're drunk, and you start swearing anyway, you don't properly open your mouth, and you kind of, yeah, I slur my words, and I kind of talk slowly, and it's like my brain is struggling to send those messages to my mouth in order to form the words that I need. So generally speaking, I'm quite a fast talker at times. I try and slow it down a little bit for YouTube, but generally speaking, I think I'm quite a fast talker. And when I get these moments of low mood, I can be very, very slow and really struggle to formulate the words that I need. So I don't think, nobody's ever called me out on it. So I don't know whether anybody has noticed that I do this, or whether they just didn't want to call me out on it. But it's definitely something that happens. And if you feel it happening, just register it in your mind that on this day, this happened to you. So, you know. And then the last one is kind of the big one. Number 9, thoughts that you would be better off dead or hurting yourself in some way. Self-harm is another matter entirely, and it's not something that I'm particularly, it's not something that I feel that I can go into all that much, because self-harm is something that I've never done. Not never. Self-harm is something that I've rarely done, because I have done forms of self-harm, sort of punching things. Punching things was normally my thing. I punch stuff until almost breaking my fingers before, you know, cut all of my knuckles open and stuff like that. But that's, you know, there's a lot different to sort of cutting yourself and stuff like that, which is completely a different kettle of fish. And I've never done anything like that, so I can't really comment on the self-harm side of things. Thoughts that I'd be better off dead. This happens, and it's happened to me on a lot of occasions. It's happened to me quite recently, and certain things sort of pull me back from the edge of that. I've never made an attempt on my life, but they word it in a way that covers a few bases. So obviously there's the thoughts of killing yourself. There's the thoughts of suicide. And I've had those thoughts. I've not done anything about them, but I've had them. They are intrusive. They are horrendous to try and get through. In my case, I've been quite lucky. They have been fleeting, but in a lot of cases they are not fleeting, and they kind of take a hold. But ones that do get me is the lack of care for myself. So I used to, when I was really low with my depression, the first time I would, because the second time was more suicidal thoughts. The first time was more a lack of care about my well-being. What does it matter if I walk out in the road without properly looking and I get hit by a car? It doesn't really matter. What does it matter if I drive recklessly and run into a tree? Well, I've never admitted this one before, but I'm going to. I had the tree picked out on the way to work that was away from everything else, wouldn't hurt anyone, but I had it picked out. And, you know, that thought process goes through your mind. That's all encompassed in this. So what would it matter if I wasn't here? Who would care? What does it matter? I'd be better off dead. People could get on. I could stop being a burden to people. You're not a burden to people. But that's the full process that goes through your mind. And all of these things will run through your head, and you need to make sure that you are taking note of them for these sorts of questions. Because if the other questions that you do are, you're getting ones, maybe the odd 2 or 0s on the questionnaire, but on the last one you get a 3 every single time, your counsellor will do something about that. They will try and tailor your counselling or your CTB or whatever they're doing to try and combat those thoughts specifically. So you need to be highlighting that as something that you do. So that is the health Patient Health Questionnaire 9 in full. 9 questions for a total score of 27 if you mark 3 on every single one. So let's quickly go through the sort of scoring process. So essentially anywhere up to, I believe it's 11, it's either 11 or 14, is considered that you don't really have a case for depression or needing that extra support or anything like that. So the threshold is quite low. I think it is 11. The threshold is quite, it's around about that sort of 35 to 40% of the total marks that you can get in the questionnaire. But anything lower than that, they're just like, no, this is kind of normal. This is kind of normal human interaction. And then from there, in sort of stages of 3 or 4, it will go to sort of mild depression, moderate depression, severe depression. And I think it's anywhere over 21, I think, is severe depression. It doesn't actually say on the sheet. It doesn't say on the sheet as to what the scores are. I guess if you're doing it yourself, then it doesn't want you to see what the scores are so that you can fudge it so you get extra treatment or anything like that. It wants you to be honest. So it's not on the sheet, but I believe that it's anywhere over 20-21 is considered severe depression. I think the maximum that I scored on this was a 23 once. I was quite lucky but a lot of the times that last question of better off dead, that was a 0 or a 1 in the last 2 weeks. It's often a 0 or a 1 because they're thoughts which happen every now and again for me, not every single day. So my score was brought down a little bit by that. And then as I was going through my CBT, that score was reduced considerably. So they will total up all of your scores into a score out of 27, and they will assign you with the severity of your depression. There's one last question at the bottom of this sheet, and I'll read it out. If you checked off any problems, how difficult have these problems made it for you to do your work, take care of things at home, or get along with other people? Then you've got 4 options again: not difficult at all, somewhat difficult, very difficult, or extremely difficult. This is not counted in to the scoring. There's not a score for this. It's just a tick box as to whether it is not difficult or extremely difficult or anywhere in between. And yeah, this is another thing where you need to be honest with yourself. Have you been abandoning the housework? Have you been putting off doing things? I can show you things around my house right now that I've been putting off doing because of both low mood and physical injury. This is not as tidy as I like it, as a small example. So yeah, be honest with that one. Make sure that if this is impacting your work, if this is impacting your day-to-day living, your counsellor needs to know, your GP needs to know, because that's how they're going to look at you moving forwards. Like if it's not affecting your life, then you don't necessarily need to worry about it all that much. That's not true, but that's the way that they'll kind of look at it. If it's not affecting your life, then okay, we'll do a little bit to help you. But if it is affecting your life, if it's affecting you being able to go to work, then they'll put in a little bit more effort. And it's wrong, I know they should treat everybody, but hospitals, therapy services, they're very stretched. It's difficult to get everybody in there. So if it's not affecting you too much, then it might just be, well, take some medication for a little while, it'll pass. Whereas if it's affecting your work day to day, then they'll look into it a little bit more. And it's a sad reality, unfortunately. So that is the PHQ-9. I've talked for far too long. I've talked for longer than I was expecting to. We are going to go through the other forms that you'll have to do, which are the GAD-7 and the HADS. And we are going to cover those in the same amount of detail so that you know exactly what you're going into when you're getting a diagnosis. So this is the PHQ-9. This is more for depression. The GAD-7 is more for anxiety. GAD is generalized anxiety disorder. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic couple of weeks. I hope you are I hope that this has helped in some way. And you know, if you are feeling down and you're worried about getting a diagnosis, I hope that this has helped in some way to know exactly what you're going to be coming up with, and it is this PHQ-9. Just one simple sheet of paper that you need to fill out. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you soon.